Hey, this is Milo from the Descendants. We just put a record out called Ninth and Walnut. So check it out. See if you can get one. And right now I'm talking on the vinyl guide.
Yes, Milo, indeed you are. Hey, everyone, it's Nate. Welcome to episode 291 of the Vinyl Guide, the podcast for vinyl record collectors and music nerds. And guess what, people? I've got a great one for you today. Milo Aukerman of Descendants is with us today, and we are celebrating the Descendants' new LP, Ninth and Walnut, which is out this week. This is the Descendants' lost album, featuring the same lineup that wrote and recorded Milo Goes to College. 14 unreleased songs that were recorded in more recent years with the original lineup. And I must say, Ninth and Walnut is a phenomenal view into the early years and what made the Descendants a household name. At least in my household. Ninth and Walnut is on your streaming services. It's on limited light blue colored vinyl and of course classic black, and yours can be had at descendantsonline.com from Epitaph Records, or simply rock up to your local independent record shop and politely demand your copy. That's Descendants Ninth and Walnut, out July 23rd. Now, I must confess to you, Milo Aukerman has always been one of my absolute favorite singers, and I've always wanted him here on the show. So this week is a big get for me. Today we talk not only about the new album, but the history of the band, the new Alliance days, the making of Milo Goes to College, even talking about science and his perspective on COVID. You know, some people may not know, Milo holds a PhD in biology, which is the primary reason he's been in and out of Descendants for many years. So Milo's perspective on COVID is quite relevant. Plus, he also shares a lot of stories and even gives us a glimpse into what the future may be for one of the greatest rock bands in history and whether there are future Descendants releases in the works. And finally, everyone, I'm going to ask you all to subscribe and follow and even share the Vinyl Guide podcast. We have nearly 300 episodes of vinyl and music nerd discussions with the likes of Billy Stevenson, episode 118, talking Black Flag, Descendants, All and More. Henry Rollins, episode 100, we go deep into his record collection and record nerdery talk. Ian Mackay, episodes 281, 282, and even Black Flag, Circle Jerks, and Off Singer Keith Morris, episode 290 of the Vinyl Guide. Subscribe to and follow our podcast. Share the Vinyl Guide episodes on your social media, and you will be my best friend for life. All right, let's go. Let's start our conversation with Milo Aukerman of Descendants. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this week on the Vinyl Guide, Mr. Milo Aukerman of Descendants, whose new album, Ninth and Walnut, is out July 23rd on Epitaph Records. Milo, thank you so much for coming on the show. This new album is another kind of interesting twist in that road of Descendants. Yeah, it's not your typical Descendants album as someone might expect the next record to be, yeah?
Right. It's a bunch of songs that were originally written back in 1978 and 1979, that period, by the original guitar player and bass player. That would be Frank and Tony, who wrote these songs, as I said, many, many years ago. And then they were recorded in 2002 with Frank and Tony, everything but the vocals. And then the vocals were done last year. So it's this, it's been this long project where different parts came together at different times, but it's been a lot of fun for me to kind of to finish it off with the vocals.
Now, in the chronology here, there's the Fat EP, then this material, then Milo Goes to College. Do I have that right?
Well, actually, there was the single that came out before the Fat EP. It's the single. The very first thing that Descendants ever put out was called "Ride the Wild" on one side, "It's a Hectic World" on the other side, and that's the same period that when those songs were, recorded and put out. That's about when these songs were also written. So it's kind of songs from that same period of just the very, very beginning, and so. I think some people might hear those first two songs on that single, "Ride the Wild, It's Hectic World," and think, well, how did, it doesn't sound a lot like the Descendants. it's kind of more of a surfy sounding, kind of 60s-ish almost sounding. And how did they get from that to something like the Fat EP? How did they get from that to something like Milo Goes to College? And these songs, I think, help answer the question a little bit, because they have, definitely there's aspects of them that are very similar to Ride the Wild, Hectic World, but then you can also hear aspects of them that are like Milo Goes to College. So that's the kind of framework for the songs.
Right. Okay. So if I have this right, Ride the Wild and Hectic World, that single, those two songs were selected based on maybe another 10 or so, because I noticed on this album those two songs are also there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when they recorded Ride the Wild, Hectic World, I have a feeling that they were like, well, we've got X number of hours in the studio, we're just going to pick two songs of our repertoire and we're going to do those. And that was Ride the Wild, Hectic World. So we didn't end up recording any of those other songs that were, in the set list at that point. And the first time these have really been recorded was, like I said, in 2002 for this project. And so that's how it worked out.
So some 20 something years later, they're recorded. What was the discussion behind that? What was the plan to record these songs? Was it just to capture them?
Yeah.
Or was there a greater plan kind of afoot?
No, it was to capture them. And what I heard from Bill, because he was the one who contacted Frank and Tony. Frank and Tony had played a couple songs on our record from 1995, Everything Sucks. So if you look on Everything Sucks, you can see credits for Frank and Tony. And so I think Bill had this kind of germ of an idea, like, hey, what about all these songs that we used to do back in 78, 79? And so he contacted Frank and Tony, and, this would have been in like I said, 2001, 2002, and said, hey, let's just do this to record these for posterity, right? I mean, these are songs that were in the ether. They were in our brains and nowhere else. I mean, maybe there was a practice tape of them back then, but you know how practice are, little floppy cassettes that get lost, or the quality's not really all that good. So this was an attempt to document the very early material from the band for the first time, and that's so yeah. Frank and Tony, when it flew out to Fort Collins, and they just knocked it all out.
Now, as I understand the story of Descendants, it was around this time in '79 where you stepped up and filled the microphone spot for almost an offhand discussion. Yeah. And then from that point forward, you were the singer.
I was the singer. Yeah. That was in 1980. Yeah. Yeah. So
were these some of the songs that you sang back then?
Yeah. Half of these songs were still in the set. They, the entire set before I joined was comprised of most of these songs. And then I think some of them just got put on the back burner, or put on the, discarded or whatever. I think, maybe because we were drinking so much coffee that we thought, oh, we got to play faster. We got to play really fast. So we can't do that one there. That's too slow or whatever. And so then, but when I joined, I'm going to say about half of these songs were songs that had survived that culling basically. And that we then performed, I practiced with them and performed live back in that time. And then there was more culling, so that by the time we do record Milo Goes to College, a lot of these songs had been culled out as well. I think the only songs from this initial bolus of songs that made it on the Milo Goes to College were Parents and Statue of Liberty.
Okay.
Yeah, Liberty. We're from this original kind of set of songs. So yeah, they kind of just fell by the wayside over the years. And of course the big question is why? Because I listen to these songs now and I go, these are great songs. Why didn't we keep playing them? And it's just because our style was evolving. Our style was under the influence of coffee was evolving, and we were getting to be like this. We want to play real fast, and so you listen to these songs and you realize, well, there's not as much influence of coffee, but I'm okay with that.
I think the world is under the influence of coffee now. So, and was it difficult remembering these songs? I mean, were the words already written, or like, how did you prepare to record lyrics to songs that were recorded some 40 years previously?
Well, I mean, the songs that I did with the band back then, they all came back to me pretty easily. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think, Bill had the lyrics. They must have archived the lyrics at some point, and he gave me all the lyrics. Just like, oh, I'm not going to need this one. I'm not going to need that one. That one's just hardwired. We practiced. That's the thing. I mean, even though these songs never got recorded, we practiced so much that they just became hardwired just through rote practice. So I didn't have a problem with those. Now the ones that I hadn't sung back then, that were brand new to me. And then they gave me the lyric sheet, and there were some guide vocals from Frank. Frank had done some guide vocals, and Tony had done some guide vocals. Mm-hmm. So I was able to kind of hear their take on it. And I got to say, the ones that I really like on the record the best are the ones that I hadn't even heard before. And I got to hear Frank sing them. I got to hear Tony sing them, and it was just like this great, like, I felt like I was, unearthing this, like, this chapter of the Descendants, or these nuggets of the original Descendants that I'd never heard before. That was really special.
Did it feel like kind of being one step away from the whole process? Because a lot of those songs, if I understand it correctly, were written before you were in the band.
Yeah. I mean, well, I basically over the years, kind of, that's just part of my gig as a singer, because I write a quarter of the songs now, so there's 3/4 of the songs that are coming from other members. And that's my thing, is to basically put my interpretation on someone else's thing. When I joined the band, they had a whole set, none of which I'd written, because I didn't come into the band knowing even how to write a song. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, I'll sing all these songs that these other people wrote. And I got pretty facile at that activity. I feel like I can give them my interpretation, and I feel like I acquitted myself pretty well. So yeah.
So the songs, again, just getting the timeline straight, written around 1979, recorded in 2002, and then again there were some sessions in 2008.
I think maybe in 2004. There might have been 2002 and 2004 sessions. Okay. Because I think in 2008, actually Frank died in 2008, so we wouldn't have been doing any recording then. But I think there were 2 sessions in 2004, 2002, 2004 that they knocked him out in. And like I said, I'd only recorded vocals last year.
Okay. Did Frank know his time was somewhat limited recording?
No, I don't think so. I don't think anyone did. I mean, now he wasn't living the most healthy of lifestyles. I mean, he ended up with diabetes by the end of it. And I'm not sure how well he managed his diabetes when his actual death was from, complications due to diabetes. So, yeah.
Okay.
It was definitely something where, he was probably declining, but then at the end, he just, went off the cliff in terms of decline. He was, I think he had basically heart failure by the end of it.
Mm. So the basic tracks were finished recording, I'll say 15, 18 years ago, something like that. Yeah. Why did it take so long to get to this? Like, this seems to be, again, another Descendants-like gulf in between them. Yeah.
Well, why do we take so long to do anything? That's always a question. But I think, the first part of that period, I was kind of out of the music biz. I wasn't even involved with music from about 2004 to 2011. I was a scientist, being a genetics guy. And so, I think Bill, he had told me about this stuff in 2004, I think. Mm-hmm. Hey, we did this thing. And I was like, that's cool. I got to get back to my experiment. I was not kind of like mentally in the frame of mind to even like, oh, let's go do this thing, But in 2011, when we started playing again as a band, it came up again, and we thought, that's cool, but let's make new music too, because we put out new music in 2016, and I think we were kind of focused on that. And then after that became the focus. Let's make new music. And in fact, we are currently writing new music now, and we've actually recorded a whole bunch of new music with Stefan and Carl and Bill. So then I think, I'll just kind of relate how it even became became a light bulb over my head just this last year is that we were recording for a new record, and I'd gotten through all the songs that I wrote, and I'd gotten through all the songs that Stefan and I wrote together. And then, at that point I had to put on the brakes. There was no other songs to record. Mm-hmm. And sure, I could go out and write more songs but really what I was waiting to do is I was waiting for Bill and Carl to write songs, because we all have to kind of contribute. So sitting there waiting for Bill and Carl to write songs, but like I'm in the groove of recording, and I just thought I'll just do this other thing because I wanted to stay in the groove. So I told Bill, hey, look, if you're not going to give me any of your songs to record, I want to record something else. Send me the Frank and Tony stuff, and I'll just start plowing through that. And I just wanted to kind of maintain my kind of like my momentum in terms of recording. Right. Especially during COVID. I mean, during COVID, what else can I do, right? So,
so being a scientist during COVID, like how was that for you? I mean, this is a time where we were looking for scientists to contribute, and this is a time where you were doing music. What was your response or position on COVID?
Well, it was very frustrating to me, and there were, it was frustrating enough to at some point I thought I need to kind of put my skills back to work, because A, the band's not playing, and B, it was just such a frustrating thing to watch the complete failure of the government kind of with the testing part initially. I mean, if we would have gotten the testing part under control and done contact testing, done the whole bit, I think we could have avoided many, many, many deaths. And it was very frustrating to me to see that all go down. So yeah, I mean, in reading the way that it went down, I had a good technical view on why it failed, which is basically their positive control was a faulty positive control, or no, their negative control was a faulty negative control. And so they'd run these tests, but the negative control would light up and they'd be like, uh-oh, this isn't working out. So that was all the initial testing that was done with those early kits at the CDC labs. So, it was, so that's my view on it as a scientist, is that there was kind of so there was a mess up in the actual kit and in the technology of the kit, but then there was also a mess up because once you find that there's something faulty, you ought to be able to kind of spin around and change and fix it. But because these are these big, kind of governmental bureaucratic things, it took them weeks and weeks, perhaps even months, to kind of change the kit out and make the kit work the way that it should work. So I think it's a combination of some bad science, but also just some bad governmental, just kind of slowness and sloth that meant that we were just never. And then on top of that, there was not enough kind of emphasis placed on the need to test. It was like, who needs a test? We're not going to test.
Yeah. More tests will just mean more positive results. Why would we want to do that?
Why would we want to do that? Yeah.
So was that kind of your field? Was that kind of your wheelhouse of what was happening?
Well, the test is a PCR test, and I did thousands of PCR tests when I was, in my science career. It's just if you're going to be working in genetics and molecular biology, you're going to run those tests all the time. And so I was very familiar with what they were doing in terms of a test for COVID. And so, yeah, I mean, it wasn't my wheelhouse completely. And so that's why I could shake my fist and be like, you're fucking up here.
Was there anything like you could have done at all? Because I know you'd retired in 2016. Well, did you feel like, there's an opportunity for you to suit back up and get back in the game? I mean,
I thought that I probably wouldn't be leading a lab, but I could be a pair of hands to run more tests, to run more PCR. I could definitely run a PCR assay for sure. And, I thought about it just because, in the middle of COVID, as many people were, you feel like you're just kind of, you're sitting on your hands. I felt like I wanted to contribute something. Mm-hmm. But then my wife said, well, I mean, there was a discussion about, well, now you're just going to expose yourself so I guess in the end, I kind of chickened out. I don't know. It's like, it could have been something where I contributed if I could get buy-in from my family. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, look, I'm in Australia and we've got the sort of genetic testing when a case pops up, say, in one suburb of New South Wales, within about 24 hours, they can identify the strain and possibly the links of where it came from.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I imagine that's the sort of state that you saw the potential of getting to.
Yeah, because actually the identifying the strains is extremely important. Now that involves not only just a PCR assay, but also, some sequencing as well. Mm-hmm. And I think, definitely I'm pretty familiar with all that sequencing technology as well. So,
as a scientist, are you somewhat comforted that it's now under control, or are you worried about variants? What's your view of what's happening now?
I mean, I am worried about variants. I think that the vaccine is clearly the way to go. I mean, I think people should be aware that if you want to solve this thing, you got to get vaccinated. As a society, we need to vax up to make it go away. But we're going to vax up, but we have to be vigilant about variants. Are the variants going to be covered by the vaccine? This kind of thing, and those vaccines are going to have to be updated as we get more variants identified. It's going to be no different than the flu. I mean, every time you go get your flu shot, the scientists have figured out which strain of flu is the strain this season, and it'll be the same thing for COVID. And it'll be what strain of COVID is popping up this season, and then that's going to be what the vaccine will target.
Right. So it's clear you're a science nerd. Are you also a record nerd? Do you collect vinyl at all?
Well, I mean, I would call myself a vinyl purchaser, not a collector. And the reason why I have to say that is because I don't take good enough care of my vinyl to be a vinyl collector. That's kind of.
Oh, hang on.
Yeah, you're gonna have a heart attack.
Oh my gosh. Whew.
Yeah.
All right. Let me get a drink here.
I got a turntable a few years back, and for my birthday, and I think my kids might have bought it for me, and they said, "Dad, we noticed that you had all these vinyl records and you weren't playing them, and we thought, here's what you need." I said, "Yeah, you're right." Mm-hmm. And I think my initial thinking was I wanted a turntable so that I could convert everything to MP3s. So I had that as my motivation. But I'll tell you, I haven't converted a single record to MP3. A, out of laziness, and B, because I like playing. I like spinning. I like spinning the vinyl. And so I just decided, hey, if I want to hear my record, I'm going to go put it on. I'm not going to, take some MP3 version of it and listen to it in any other way. So that's kind of where I am with vinyl. It's like I listen to the radio. I listen to, obviously, I use stream services, Spotify. But I'd say maybe 30% of my listening is by spinning records. I mean, so I really appreciate my kids buying me that turntable. It's one of the things that records have been sitting there for so long. I may never have, brought them upstairs if they hadn't, kicked me in the butt to kind of to get it.
Were these records from your youth? Were there the pressings, records of even your copy of Milo Goes to College from back in the day? Those sort of things?
Yeah, I think I might have something like that. I do have some pretty old records. And as I said, I'm not the best about taking care of them, but it was definitely great to go back and thumb through them and go, oh, I remember buying that one. The other thing that I've done is that when I go shopping at the record store now is I go, well, where did I first hear the Germs? Where did I first hear X? Where did I first hear, Devo? And I realized that all of my favorite bands, I never even owned those records because I was always going over to a friend's house and listening to them over their house. And so that's actually a great kind of trip down memory lane is if I put those records on, then I kind of put myself back into where I was when I first heard them. And so I realized that most of my favorite records I didn't even own. That's the punchline of all.
Right.
And so when I go to a record store now, I'm kind of filling in the gaps. I'm like, I went and bought Devo, Are We Not Men? I just never owned it. It was always, I went to my friend's house to listen to it. So now I've got my own copy of that. So that's been great to kind of, it's a great way of saying, well, that record's so important to me. Why not just have my own copy of it?
I always imagined Are We Not Men was a huge influence on early Descendants. That be fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And that first single that came out, Ride the Wild Hectic World, if you listen to Hectic World and through the eyes of a Devo fan, you go, oh yeah, Devo. It's got a boppy kind of new wavy thing going on, and that probably appealed to me as a 17, 18-year-old or listening to it, kind of like, because I kind of went from being that new wave kid listening to Devo to kind of making the jump to punk rock. And that all happened because of this one show I went to where Devo played and X opened up. And so then it was like, I listened to X play and I was like, whoa, these guys are cool. And then Devo played and I realized, wait a minute, I think I like X more now than Devo. And so that was the kind of dividing line for me. And then I got more into them.
Was there ever an artist or singer who you looked at in your early days and thought, I want to do that? Who was your musical mentor?
It probably was X, because I had gotten into X and I had taken a couple guitar lessons, and they just have you play acoustic and you're playing these open chords and singing Michael Rode the Boat Ashore. And I'm listening to X going, wait a minute, I want to play this. But you can't play X on A on acoustic, but B, you can't, they're playing those bar chords that we all agree about. I didn't know what those were. So I was over at my friend's house, of course, because he owned the X record. And I put it on, and his brother was there, who was an actual guitar player. And I said, how do you play this? And, they go into, Johnny Hit and Run Pauline or whatever. And he goes, oh, that's just bar chords. And he picked up his guitar and showed me how to play a bar chord. And it just opened up this world for me. So I think that was what it was like. And once you learn about bar chords and you kind of go, I love punk rock and I can play a bar chord, it all opens up.
Now, there was that moment where you were watching Descendants practice. You were on the sidelines, and then you put your hand up and said, hey, I think I can sing Hectic World, I think was how the story goes. And they gave you the shot, and then from then on, you were the singer. But in the moments or days or even weeks before you stuck your hand up, were you trying to build up the courage to raise your hand?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think back to that moment. Was I scheming and planning this for? I don't think so. I feel like yeah. And here's why: because I went to go see them practice, and they had a mic set up, and I just assumed that when they practiced, each guy sang their songs. I mean, half the songs were Tony's songs, half the songs were Frank's songs at that time, and so I'm waiting for them to step up to the mic when it was their turn to sing, and they weren't. They were just like, oh, we're just going to play. And then I'm thinking, well, I didn't really ask them, why aren't you singing? I just figured, well, they're not doing it because they are, it's easier for them just to get tight with the song if they just play it and not do the singing. But so that I think that's why it kind of happened to spur of the moment, because I just thought, no one's stepping up to the mic. That means that I could if I wanted, and I just said, hey, I'll sing Ride the Wild right now just for fun, and just to kind of as a laugh.
Right.
And or it's a hectic world. Yeah.
Were you the type of person that would do things like that? Were you that spontaneous? Were you brave like that?
I was not. I was a pretty shy high schooler, especially as a junior, sophomore. I mean, sorry, as a freshman, sophomore, junior. I was pretty shy and didn't really have a lot of confidence, or just didn't have any kind of a social presence or a way of kind of, stating to the world, I am me or whatever, But what happened is I think punk rock helped that, because I was going out, I started going out to see shows, and I also just started to kind of embrace my own personality. Because I was a geek, I was a nerd, and that was something I just kind of kept under wraps, or just kind of never allowed to emerge in my personality. But punk rock allowed me to be a geek. It allowed me to be a nerd, because punk rock, it allows you to be anything you want to be. It's all about getting out your aggressions and your frustrations. And B, part of being a nerd and being a geek is that you're just kind of like, at least one version of a nerd is just kind of like this spazzy person who's just like, all over. And so I felt like punk rock was allowing me to kind of allowing my personality to come to fruition.
Right.
And so I wouldn't have done what I did there if it had been like a year or two earlier, because I would have been too kind of closed into myself. But definitely punk helped me get, to the point where when I did go see the practice, I was kind of like, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to do this. Yeah.
Right.
Now,
you raised your hand spontaneously. You jumped up there. You sang songs. There were probably 6 people in the room, I would imagine. How long was it between there and the time you got to a show with a much larger crowd?
Well, I think I did that, and I think maybe a couple weeks later. It's kind of murky, but it wasn't immediate. It wasn't like I sang and they said, "You're hired." There was nothing. It was more like, I think that they were, I wasn't really a singer, so I kind of gave it my best effort, but I wasn't a singer. And so I think they probably didn't think much of it. But then later on, maybe one of either Frank or Tony, I think it was probably Frank, was saying, I'm getting tired of singing my own songs. Why don't we just let Milo do it? It was one of these like, well, if we had a singer, we could not have to sing our own songs. And in fact, they did have a singer, a girl singer, a female singer for some period before I joined. And the thing is I never saw her come to practice. So that was the confusing thing. Why wasn't she at practice? I don't know. But when I'd go see them play live, all of a sudden there was this singer singing. So it was kind of weird that way. But I think the decision to have me be singer maybe had to do with the energy I brought to it or something. But, right. It all out. And then I think probably, like I said, if that would have been a few weeks / a month later or whatever. And then the first show I was supposed to do was probably a month or two after that.
Do you remember the anticipation of going up on stage, or do you recall being completely fine with that?
Well, I was really nervous. I think the first couple of shows I did, I barely faced the audience. I would face the band because the music was coming from them and I wanted to kind of vibe off them. And that's how we were in the practice room. We're all just facing each other in the practice room. Right. So I thought, well, this is going to make me the most comfortable if I just face them, and it makes me more comfortable to not face the audience, then I'm going to do that.
Right.
Yeah. It definitely didn't come naturally to me. So even though, as I said, as a high school student, I was pretty shy, but I kind of broken out to some degree. But when I started singing, I realized I needed to break out even more. Mm-hmm. There was more breaking out to be done. Yeah.
So let's fast forward quickly to the Fat EP. Do you recall the conversation with Mike Watt and D Boone about pressing up the Fat EP on New Alliance?
We'll be back after these messages.
Psst, hey, I gotta let you know about the Groove Washer record cleaner. The Groove Washer is the best record cleaner money can buy. I use it daily, and it not only cleans my records so they look and sound their very best, but the Groove Washer is also safe for long-term vinyl storage. I would never trust my vinyl with a no-name cleaner. Ask for the Groove Washer by name at your local record shop and accept no substitutes. And if they don't stock the Groove Washer, just simply go to groovewasher.com and get 10% off with discount code VinylGuide10. That's groovewasher.com, discount code VinylGuide10. Write this down, AudiofileUSA.com. AudiofileUSA.com is a family-owned and operated record shop that only sells excellent and near-mint vinyl records. They somehow find the cleanest record collections on the planet, many in original shrink wrap, some still sealed, and AudiofileUSA.com makes these decades-old pressings available to you. AudiofileUSA.com has over 42,000 titles in stock, and you can dig through their website searching by artist, genre, or even label and find the deals. Bookmark it in your web browser now. AudiofileUSA.com, home of the Holy Grails.
Now we return to the program already in progress.
No limits. So let's fast forward quickly to the Fat EP. Do you recall the conversation with Mike Watt and D Boone about pressing up the Fat EP on New Alliance?
Well, I mean, that was something Bill could tell you about it, because he kind of, I think he's kind of the man in the band that kind of pulls all those strings, and he's the kind of the ringleader. But I do remember that we played a lot of shows with the Minutemen, and we loved them. They were great, and one of our favorite bands. We got along well with D Boone and Mike Watt a lot. And we did some road trips up to from LA up to San Francisco, in this beat up van with them, and just kind of really, I think we're just kind of tight, thick as thieves with them. So it made sense. I think it made sense to them that they could do it for us. And I think Bill was kind of like, yeah, sure. The first one, the Ride the Wild Hectic World was done just by Bill himself, financed with the help of his dad and just on his own label, Orca Productions.
Yeah.
The fact that that Watt was willing to step in and help us with that made it made a little sense. I don't think we had greater ambitions than just being on New Alliance, really. So
yeah. Do you remember anything about the records being pressed? Do you remember, I don't know how many? Do you remember the day that the boxes came in? What do you recall from that?
I don't recall any of this. This is where my appearance on this show will be. There will be big question marks.
I'm going to start giving each guest a flag. Just raise it when we get too nerdy.
Yeah.
Here.
That was because I think, and that would be something where if I could have a lifeline to call Bill, then I could call him and he'd know. Oh, we pressed 500 or whatever the number would be. It wasn't a ton that we pressed.
Mm-hmm. Now there's a drawing on the back of the Fat EP. And it's a singer with glasses, but it's very large. So I'm assuming that was that was supposed to be you, but fat. Is that?
Well, yeah. What I finally heard, I did hear this from Frank at some point. I'm not exactly sure when he told me this, but that was an amalgam. It was the amalgam Descendant, because I think it was Bill's body and then my head. And maybe I'm not sure what parts were Tony and what parts were Frank, but it was but it made sense. Fat EP, so Fat Milo or whatever. Yeah, but it's supposed to be an amalgam of sorts. I always thought when I looked at it, the guy's eating a candy bar, but that was just Frank's art. It made it look like he's just chewing on a candy bar.
Oh, I thought he was a microphone. I thought he was singing.
No, it is. I think it is supposed to be a microphone, but I thought it was a candy bar because again, it fits with the Fat theme,
Right. And did you guys sell those records at shows? Do you remember carrying them around, or were they in shops? Like, how did they get out there?
I have a feeling either Bill or Mike or somebody was taking them to the independent record stores, like the one in Long Beach. Which now, why am I drawing a blank on the name of that place? This one independent record store in Long Beach that they carried all the Zed records. Yeah. So Zeds would have all the new, 45s of bands, Orange County bands and South Bay bands. And so we'd go down and give them some. And then this place called Recycled Records was a smaller place that you could kind of reliably find a lot of local vinyl at. And so I probably brought them there. But yeah, they weren't getting distributed to Tower or anything like that.
Yeah. But now when we go see a show, every band's got a merch table. Yeah. And it's a very well-defined practice at this point. But in the early days, you didn't have anything. Right.
We didn't have that. We didn't have T-shirts. This is pre-T-shirts. Why, someone had the bright idea of, hey, we should sell merch. But it wasn't us at that point. I mean, but there were a lot of bands that hadn't discovered it either. My first X shirt, I had to spray paint. I had to use a stencil and spray paint my first X shirt because I didn't know where to buy an X shirt. As far as I knew, they weren't available. So so we were really ahead of the curve on that.
So Milo Goes to College. It has the Milo caricature on the cover. At what point did that become a thing? Was Milo Goes to College the first time that really became known, or were you guys drawing cartoons about one another? Was there a Milo character leading up to that?
There was a Milo character, but not as part of the band. The Milo character was actually being drawn by a high school friend of mine during class to entertain me, or to annoy me at times, but to entertain others. And he drew this little comic strip. The misadventures of Milo, or whatever. I don't even know what he called it, but it was a little comic strip where he'd put the Milo character, and then that he'd be doing something. He'd be, as we would say back then, he'd be flailing in some way, in some manner. He'd be flailing, and that became this thing that he did it to amuse himself and to amuse others. So, and then he ran for student body president. And he used it on posters. So then all of a sudden, that head was on a big election poster. Milo says, "Vote for Roger," and that was even more well defined as like, stick figure that that if he felt that it was cool enough to put on his poster. So there's that, But yeah, then when we were doing Milo Goes to College, Frank came up with the title, hey, let's call it Milo Goes to College. And then Bill said, oh, okay. And then they needed an image, and that was the first thing they thought of was this drawing that Roger had done in high school. But we couldn't get him to do it because he'd gone off to West Point. So we had to get our other friend Jeff Atkinson to draw it, and he kind of reproduced the Roger drawing.
Okay, so Roger's original design, it was pretty close to what we see now. The same kind of,
I think so.
Rectangular.
And if you look at the cover of Milo Goes to College, you can see that it's signed. The artist signed Rat after RD, and the RD is Roger Dorline. So and Rat was Jeff Atkinson. So Rat after RD, because he was basically co-opting the RD drawing. So
right. So leading up to then, was Milo making his appearance on flyers, on different elements around the band, or was it?
No, not really. I think we didn't use that drawing before the Milo Goes to College. Then I think after that point. Now we didn't play a ton of shows because I was in college at that point. But when we started playing more shows in '85, then we would pull that back out. Either we or the promoter. Oftentimes the promoters would pull that back out and use it on posters. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When making Milo Goes to College, did it truly? And you were obviously going away. Did it feel like that was the true ending of the band?
I felt like it was for me. At any rate, I was going off to school, trying to get a degree in biology. Now that feeling of, while I'm leaving this behind, wash my hands of that lasted all of probably a year, and then Bill had said, because Bill and the rest of the guys got a new singer, this guy Ray Cooper, and they were doing shows with Ray as Descendants. And then Ray said, I don't really feel like singing. I'd rather be a guitar player. And at that point, they had shows booked with Ray as singing, but Ray didn't want to sing. And so he called me up. I was down in San Diego, and he called me up and said, hey, you want to just fill in for Ray? So I did it, and I enjoyed it. And that set the seed, I think, for me. Well, it set the seed for the next many, many years of me leaving the band and coming back, because every time I leave the band, I realize how much I miss it. And I got to come back, basically.
Now, just the longevity of Milo Goes to College. I'm assuming it surprises you, as it's such an interesting, unique story. When did you realize that this record had such a unique space?
Man, I don't think it was until the middle of the 90s, because even when I left the band in '87 to go to grad school at that point, and at that point, I was kind of like, well, we had our mark on the punk world, and now I'm moving on. But when I came back and we did this thing in '95 with Everything Sucks, it was definitely something where people really harkened back to that first thing that we did, first LP, not first ever thing, but our first LP. And yeah, that definitely it struck me then that, well, okay, so that someone externally had to tell me that it was important, because I was not aware at that point. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You're in a vacuum, but all of a sudden you start seeing people with Milo tattoos and people who are very well-known musicians telling you how influential that record was.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Obviously I'm very grateful for all of it, because we went into it just as a kind of, it's just a fun thing that we did. For me, it was, we obviously were really committed to what we were doing, but for me, it was just this fun thing. And so to have it be something that could have such lasting impact is, to me, it's kind of gravy. It's gravy. It's something really I've enjoyed a lot. So yeah.
At the time, did you feel it was different?
You mean when Milo Goes to College came out?
No, when you were recording it, even like these songs,
I think the thing is, I always felt like it really, it didn't fit with what I was hearing. So in that sense, I felt like it was different, because I felt like, some of my favorite bands, Black Flag, Germs, I felt like we kind of fit in with those, with say Black Flag. I mean, I guess that's probably the closest reference point. But there's so many other bands that were my favorite bands at that time, popular bands like the Orange County bands. I loved the Adolescents and and Social Distortion and all those. And we were just so different from that, especially. And I guess I always felt like we were kind of misfits, even in the in the punk rock scene. I mean, I got into punk rock because I was a misfit, but then even in the punk rock scene, I was a misfit. Mm-hmm. We never really fit in, and so that's probably what you're talking about with this. With it, it sounds different. Right. It doesn't sound like you're run-of-the-mill punk rock. Yeah.
Do you recall it being embraced right away? I mean, did it sell okay at the time?
No, I mean, I don't think it's ever sold, like gangbusters. I guess the audience is more people who are going back to discover that kind of original stuff or whatever. But yeah, I think if anything, it was a slow burn. I think it was a slow burn that where in 82, 83, 84, it sold some number of thousand things, not a bunch. And then in 85, we went and toured. In 85, 86, and 87, we toured. And I think that's when we started to, I think, make more of a name for ourselves. And just by shoving our faces out there when we play live. And I think that probably caused the slow burn to start where, it's been this kind of slow, this accumulation. There was never any big splash. And I don't think Milo Goes to College was a big splash.
Yeah. All right. So really quick, a potential record nerd flag here. There's some messages in the Runout groove of the vinyl.
Right. I hope I can. I don't know. You may have to remind me what they are.
Okay. Well, I'm interested to see if you remember.
Well, one of them, and maybe this was the Fat EP. I'm not sure if it was Fat EP or if it was Milo Goes to College, but make sure you play this loud enough to blow the shit out of your speakers. I don't know if that's one of them, but maybe.
That's not the. Let me look at Fat EP really quick and see what that was. No, this one on one side it says spillage.
Spillage.
Yeah, and on the other side, I was a punk when it didn't count.
I think one of those was probably Spillage was probably Bill, and the other one's probably Frank.
Okay.
Because I mean, I think I was a punk when it didn't count.
We had Spot on the show, and he actually said that he wrote some of these when the bands weren't aware of them too. So
maybe he wrote Spillage.
Yeah,
I see him writing Spillage. But the other, I was a punk when it didn't count. That sounds pretty Frank-like, I would think.
Yeah, and Fat EP does. Well, I don't know if it says the Runout groove on the Fat EP was bonus butt and take a shit.
Okay.
Yes. But there was a commentary, I think, on the label. Make sure to play this loud and blow the shit out of your speakers.
Okay. That's on Fat EP, but it's just comment. Yeah, just a comment.
Okay. Do you recall, going back to Milo Goes to College, it came with an insert lyric sheet.
Yeah.
Do you recall being involved at all in assembly or creation of any of those tactile items?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. Yeah. I mean, I've had more involvement more recently when I write, I've written more lyrics on that record. I wrote like 2 lyrics, I think, or 3, maybe 3 lyrics on that record.
Okay.
And I think I just gave my lyrics to Bill, and I think he might have done it. Yeah.
Right. What was your reaction? I've heard a story that you didn't even get a copy of Milo Goes to College. You had to hear it from a friend or a neighbor of a friend. Right.
That's true. Because I know that Bill had designs on giving me at least a cassette of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like here's the master. Here's a cassette of the master. But I was down at school. I recorded the vocals that got recorded in July approximately, and then it wasn't getting mastered till late summer, early fall, and I'd already gone down to school. So even though he had designs on giving me that, it didn't happen. Because when I mentioned this in some other interview, he was like, I didn't give you even a cassette of it? I said, no, I got nothing. I had nothing. So I was living down in San Diego. I was living at off campus because I screwed up my dorm application or something. So I was living off campus in a family's house and with a couple of teenage sons of the family. And one of the teenage sons said, "Hey, my friend down the street just bought your new record." And I was like, "Oh, I mean, it's out?" I had no idea. I had no idea what the release date was or anything like that. And he said, "Well, you want to come hear it?" I said, yeah, because like I said, I hadn't even heard the final version. So we walked down the street to his friend's house and they spun it. And I think they must have been looking at me weird because I was really just like listening intently because I hadn't heard the final mixes, the final masters, anything. I hadn't heard any of that. And so I'm just sitting there listening and they're just like, well, this guy's here. It seems like he's listening to this for the first time, which was exactly what was happening. Yeah. It's
okay. Weird. So obviously there's, you famously vacillated between Descendants and we'll call it civilian life. Yeah. Did you stay close to the band during that time? Like how often did you talk to Bill or anyone else while you were off doing your non-band life? Yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty much like I would check in with them pretty regularly. And if only because there were opportunities for me to kind of get back on stage with them all throughout this. I mentioned when Ray was singing where he said, "Oh, I'm not going to sing anymore." Then that presented itself with some opportunities for me to drive up from San Diego, go back up to LA and play a few shows that way. Mm-hmm. And then I do the same thing in 87. I went and they formed All. So now they're All, but I actually jumped up on stage and performed as All singer a few times as well. Mm-hmm. So I think those were the opportunities where I could catch up with them is when they just needed a singer to fill in, and I could do much of the All material, right. And I would go up and do that. So in the final analysis, what I've finally come to realize is that Bill and I we're kind of soulmates of a sort, and we've gone years without talking to each other. Not recently, but I'm going to say in the 90s and then maybe in the aughts. Went years without talking to each other, but when we pick up the thread again, it's like no time has elapsed. We just fall right back in to like we are best friends and we're best friends for life, and that's kind of how we roll. It's just been one of the best friendships of my life for sure. Mm-hmm. And understanding the All Descendants struggle, yeah, I think there was a challenge with All, and I happen to be a fan of both bands, but it was never that easy for especially the singers of All to be able to live in the shadow of Descendants. How did you ride that line of being a friend to the band, but not being perhaps intimidating or being careful with how the other singers were interpreting your involvement? Well, I always proclaimed myself the biggest fan of All. I mean, and I have been since the start of that band, and I would go see them play, and I'd be right down in front. On the times when I wasn't singing, I was like fanboy with them, and I think that's just I was the biggest cheerleader, so I felt like that's how I could help the singers out, is I could be a cheerleader for that singer at that time, and we did this thing 2019. This is a few months before COVID. We had Blasting Room had a 25th anniversary. And they invited all the All singers out. Now Chad couldn't make it, but Scott was able to come, and Dave Smalley was able to come, and it was just this. To me, it was just this really incredible kind of communion of people, and it brought back all these great feelings of watching the Dave Smalley All and watching the Scott Reynolds All, and just how important both those incarnations of All were to me. There's just a ton of mutual admiration. So I think it goes both ways. I never really felt like I was intimidated. I never meant to be intimidating. I hope they never felt intimidated, because I just loved both those guys, and Chad as well. I think every singer in that band it's a challenging thing to take on, and they just all really acquitted themselves real well. Yeah. Look, I imagine you'd have to be very sensitive to that in the perception, because it could be seen. I'm not saying it was seen, but it could be seen like, here's like a married couple and the former husband keeps kind of hanging around. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I'm sure there may have been times where they were, oh no, I hope he didn't show up. And the thing is like, and I was friends on social media with Scott Reynolds a few years back, and people would tease him about not being like, you're not Milo. That was the thing. It was
if you're not Milo, then I'm done with you, or this kind of thing. And I think he pretended to be really, really insulted by that to kind of make a joke out of it. And so we had some good riffing on that, where he had to deal with people with that statement, "You're not Milo," this kind of thing. And the silly thing is that, of course, I'm not Milo. I'm Scott Reynolds.
Right.
I felt like he and I could strike a good vibe with each other, even with that hanging over us, because he was kind of making light of it anyways. He's such a funny guy anyways.
So it sounds like Descendants are recording or have recorded something new. When do you think we'll hear more about the current Descendants lineup new record?
Well, and the thing about it is we definitely had designs on making a new record. And we'd recorded all these songs that Stefan and I wrote together, and songs that I wrote by myself, songs that Stefan wrote by himself. So we had 50% kind of full steam ahead. And then, Bill and Carl, they still have to write theirs. And I think the Ninth and Walnut, when that came around and we recorded that, it's one of these. I think it gave them a reprieve. It gave Bill and Carl a bit of a reprieve in terms of writing. Which, I mean, I suppose that's good, because now they can really focus on writing. And that's the idea, is that we're putting out Ninth and Walnut, and then probably I'm hoping next year, 2022. We can put out a new Descendants record. Yeah.
Now maybe not recently, but not long ago, we had James Williamson on of Stooges. And of course, he spent a lot of years in his civilian life doing his high tech job. Did your punk past ever play into your scientific life? And did it ever interfere with what you were doing or cause any challenges?
Well, I would say that when I was doing science, I really wanted to do it full time. And that's why you have these periods where I was just completely AWOL from, because I'd gotten a PhD in biology, and I thought, I got it. I can't let that go to waste. I need to use it. And so, I think there was periods where I would try to dabble in each and realize in frustration that was not going to happen. I couldn't just dabble. And that's true of the band too. The Descendants is not a band that you just dabble in. You're either in or you're out in terms of the commitment that it takes. Even just the touring, it's so intensive. So I was always bouncing back and forth, never able to really meld the two lives together, and that was kind of by choice, because I felt if I melded them, it would just dilute each of them out. Now, what happened in 2016 it's 2011, I should say, is we started playing shows again, and we got into a cadence that was much more amenable to me still being a scientist. So from 2011 to 2016, I was playing as many shows as possible using vacation time away from my science gig. And that was my decision. I'm going to waste all my vacation time on, or most of it at any rate, to play shows with the Descendants. And that's how I was able to kind of, at least for some period, balance the two and have not be one didn't have to interfere with the other so much.
Did you ever have, like, at work, people recognizing you, like, wait a minute, my friend's got your tattoo on their leg?
Yeah, that occasionally happened. But also, I think the scuttlebutt went around. If we got a new person coming in, then the rest of the lab would be. You realize, of course, this guy has this alter ego, and then they'd fill them in, and then either the person would be like, I don't know what you're, or they'd actually be like, oh, I know that. Yeah, I know that. And I get my lab coming to the shows that we do. At least some of them would come and see me play. And that was always weird, because these are the people, in some cases, these are people that I'm their boss. I'm their advisor, and they're coming to the show to watch me play. A weird situation, but yeah. So there's that kind of thing happening.
Now, hypercaphium spazonate. I imagine that title was from you. Yeah, that's the first time you put science in Descendants. Yeah.
So the title itself is from Carl, but what we had this great image that Bill wanted to use, and I thought was cool too, which is the Erlenmeyer. It's an Erlenmeyer flask. That's just goes that Milo face. We would find all kinds of weird, kooky ways to use the Milo face as an abstract object. And so sticking it onto a Erlenmeyer flask is just spot on. Yeah. So we had that image and we wanted to use it as the actual image for the record, but then we didn't have a title. So the title came after the fact. And Bill and I, we brainstormed and couldn't really come up with the perfect title. But I decided it ought to be a compound. It ought to be the compound that we're making in the flask. So we started to develop this story around what's happening in the flask. And the flask is a flask of this super caffeinated chemical X. You can call it chemical X. But then of course you got to give it a name eventually, and that was the name. And that was Carl's name, brilliant name he came up with, which actually got us in trouble in England. So that's
how did it get you in trouble in England?
Well, the spaz part in England. In England, spaz is not the same. Doesn't mean the same thing. I mean, when I was growing up, I called myself a spaz when I was growing up. I was a nerd. I was a geek. I was a spaz. Don't say that over in England.
Yeah. Now you say it in Australia as well. Yeah. Spaz is the same as the R word.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's just got, and we learned that, and we had to kind of, I actually had to reach out to some people in England and help them understand how we didn't have ill intentions, right? I mean, it's one of these things where culturally the word just means different things, like fag in England or that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Look, Milo, thank you so much for coming on the show. I've always wanted to have you on. Descendants have meant so much to me for many, many years. And we had Billy on some time ago and speaking to you about the old days, and especially this new 9th and Walnut recording has been really a highlight of my year here. And I hope to have you back on when the next Descendants comes on, and we'll cover maybe some other records later on in the Descendants career in the discussion as well. I want to remind folks, 9th and Walnut is out July 23rd on Epitaph Records. Of course, there's some special vinyl variants available. Go online and grab those. Blue?
The blue, mottled blue is the best.
Okay, that's your favorite? We'll,
yeah.
So get yourself a mottled blue. Do you know how many were pressed?
No!
Oh, all right. You got in the game and you ran right back out.
Yeah. I should have came armed with all this data, but I didn't.
Typical Milo.
Yeah.
Running in and running out. All right. But find yourself a blue copy of 9th and Walnut or any other vinyl variant from Epitaph Records. Again, Milo, thank you so much for coming on the Vinyl Guide.
Thank you.
All right, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Milo Aukerman of Descendants. 9th and Walnut is out July 23rd. Cue it up on your streaming services. It's a fantastic album. It's a great trip down the road of Descendants and music history. 9th and Walnut is also available on vinyl at Descendants Online, or rock up to your local independent record store and grab one there. Thanks again so much, Milo, for coming on the Vinyl Guide. That is it for this episode of the Vinyl Guide. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please share these podcasts online. Put them on your social media. Tweet them out on Twitter. Help us spread the word about the Vinyl Guide. And if you want to do me an extra solid favor, please leave us a positive review on iTunes or wherever you get these podcasts. Log in, give us 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. Say something nice, make us blush. That is always appreciated. And we'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, get out there and buy some records, people. Cheers.
That's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Send your thoughts to Nate at thevinylguide.com or follow or tag us on Instagram at Vinyl Guide. Until next time, keep spinning.